Imagine a mob of 60,000 princes, and they're armed with fingernails that are literally as hard as diamonds.
Right. Just tearing the earth apart.
Exactly. Tearing the earth apart to find a single horse, only to be instantly incinerated by this meditating sage.
Which sounds completely wild.
It does. It sounds like the climax of some, fantasy blockbuster. But in ancient Sanskrit texts, this wild narrative is actually a really profound diagnostic tool. We're going to explore this deeply analytical, psychological framework that's basically just wrapped in the guise of mythology.
Yeah, definitely. And welcome to the deep dive. Our mission for you today is to unpack this really ancient concept called Ganga Dusera or Dasha Papahara Dashami.
Right.
It's this highly auspicious 10-day period, and it falls in the bright half of the Jyeshtha month, specifically under the Hasta star, right, Nakshatra.
And we're going to pair the mechanics of this time period with an epic narrative from the Valmiki Ramayana. We'll look at a system that identifies 10 specific behavioral traps we all fall into, right? And the psychological catalysts you need to cure them.
Exactly.
Plus, how that whole story of those 60,000 incinerated princes explains our very human attempt to, manage the heavy burned ashes of our own past mistakes.
Because to understand the cure, we really first have to understand the disease. The ancients actually categorized human missteps, what they refer to as papas, or sins, into a highly specific framework.
Okay, let's unpack this framework, because what I find fascinating is the structure of it. Like, they didn't just write a laundry list of bad things to avoid,
No, no.
They divided human action into 3 distinct buckets. You've got the body, speech, and the mind. So there are 3 physical missteps, 4 of speech, and 3 of the mind. It is a completely full anatomy of human behavior.
Which really points to a super sophisticated understanding of action.
Yeah.
Long before modern psychology, these texts recognize that a thought actually carries weight. A word has mass.
Right, you don't have to physically strike someone to commit a destructive act.
Exactly.
So let's start with the physical bucket. Jumping to the third one, it's paradara, which is pursuing someone else's spouse.
Right.
And the second is himsa, meaning harm. But the texts are really careful to define this as planned, intentional harm, right?
Yeah, that premeditation is key. It's that planning that creates the deep psychological stain, not just, an accidental bump in the street.
Intent is everything, which I guess brings us to the first physical misstep. Avataranam upadanam.
Right, which at its core basically means taking what isn't meant for you.
Yeah.
But the ancient commentators expand on this with a really specific example regarding charity.
Yes, and I actually really want to challenge this point, because the text argues that giving charity to the wrong person, like someone who is unsuitable or will misuse the gift, it actually ruins both the giver and the receiver.
It does.
I struggle with that. If I give $10 to someone on the street, my intention is compassion, right? If they use it to buy something harmful, how does their action retroactively make my initial good deed a sin?
Yeah, it's a really difficult concept for the modern mind, I think, because we tend to judge ourselves solely by our initial intentions. Like we say, oh, well, I meant well.
Exactly. I was trying to help.
But ancient Vedic philosophy often focuses on the ultimate trajectory of energy. So if you provide resources to someone, you are basically watering a plant.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Right. If that plant is poisonous, you are helping it grow and spread toxins. You are complicit in the ecosystem you're funding.
Oh, wow. So it's basically an argument against blind altruism.
Precisely. The ancient view is that charity carries this really heavy burden of awareness. You have to find a suitable recipient who will use the resource to generate a positive outcome for the world.
Instead of just handing it out to make yourself feel good.
Exactly. If you just throw resources out blindly for that feel-good rush, that's an ego trip, not charity. And that ego trip becomes a papa.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Even if it is a really tough pill to swallow, it demands rigorous situational awareness from you.
It does.
Now, moving to the second bucket speech, this is where the framework feels remarkably modern to me. There are 4 missteps here. The first 2 are pretty straightforward, right? Purusham, which means harsh or abusive words, and unrutam, which is falsehoods or lying.
Right. But it's the third and fourth where we see the granular mechanics of how communities actually fall apart.
Oh, absolutely. The third is pashunyam. And this isn't just generic gossiping. It is specifically bad-mouthing someone behind their back in a way that causes them to lose an opportunity.
Right, it's targeted.
Very targeted. When I read that, I instantly pictured toxic corporate office politics. It's that colleague who, smiles at you in the strategy meeting, but then subtly undermines your competence to the boss over coffee, completely torpedoing your promotion.
Yeah, and why does that specific act earn a place on this top 10 list? It's because trust is the invisible architecture of any community.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Paishunyam destroys a person's social capital
Yeah.
invisibly, right?
Yeah.
It leaves them completely unable to defend themselves. It just rots the structure from the inside out.
Yeah, it really does. And then you have the fourth speech misstep, which is asandarbha pralapa. This translates to useless, out of context, chaotic talk.
Basically, noise for the sake of noise.
Exactly. It is aimless internet trolling. Perfectly predicted thousands of years ago.
Yeah, we really haven't changed much, have we?
Not at all. But it forces you to realize that injecting chaotic noise into a system isn't a neutral act. It actively degrades the environment.
Which flows really naturally into the third and final category, which is the mind. But the words are often just the leaking exhaust of what is happening internally.
Right.
So the mind has three missteps. First, coveting the wealth of others. Second, anishta chintanam, which is secretly wishing harm or failure on someone else.
Like just sitting in your room, doing absolutely nothing physically, but literally hoping your rival's business fails.
Exactly. That internal generation of malice is considered a definitive misstep.
Wow.
And the final one, the third misstep of the mind, is abhinivesha. And from a psychological standpoint, this might actually be the most dangerous trap on the entire list.
I found this one fascinating, but I really need you to break down exactly how it works. Because abhinivesha essentially means clinging to your bad habits or missteps, even when you completely understand that they're wrong and they're causing you suffering.
Right, so think about the friction of cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
You know the corporate backstabbing is rotting your soul. You know the useless internet trolling is making you miserable and anxious. But you refuse to give it up.
But why? Like, if you know it hurts, why keep doing it?
Because the ego would rather be miserable and quote-unquote right,
Yeah.
or at least comfortable in its known identity, than undergo the terrifying vulnerability of actually changing.
Oh.
Abhinivesha is basically the mind gripping a hot coal, knowing it's burning the skin, but refusing to open the hand.
Man, it's a defense mechanism that kills the host. So if we look at this entire framework, the body, speech, and mind, it's pretty safe to say everyone listening has engaged in at least a few of these.
Oh, absolutely. We all do.
We all carry the residue of these actions. So how did the ancients propose we clear the slate?
Well, the primary physical remedy prescribed during this 10-day period is taking a bath in the Ganges River. The flowing water of the Ganga is considered the ultimate purifying force.
But practically speaking, the vast majority of people cannot physically travel to India for this really specific 10-day window.
And the ancient traditions totally anticipated that. They rarely create an exclusive system without providing some accessible alternative.
Right, the mental hack. You can invoke the river mentally while reciting a specific text called the Ganga Stotram, which is this hymn given by sage Vyasa, right?
Yes, it was originally recited by the creator deity, Brahma.
And it contains the numerous names of the river Ganga. The belief is that reciting these names pulls the potency and the history of the river right into your current space.
But, if we stop there, it sounds like simple magic. To understand the actual mechanics of why reciting a hymn would change your psychology, we need to borrow a concept from ancient Ayurvedic medicine, which is anupana.
Okay, let's define that for the listener.
So anupana basically translates to the carrier or the vehicle. Imagine a medicinal herb in powder form, like turmeric.
Right, very common.
If you just eat a spoonful of dry turmeric powder, your body can't absorb it well.
And it would taste terrible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It needs a carrier like warm milk or black pepper to actually activate the compound and deliver it into your cells. The milk is the anupana.
Okay, so if reciting the names in the Ganga Stotram is the dry medicinal powder, what is the carrier? What activates it?
The tradition is completely unambiguous here. The anupana for the spiritual remedy is shraddha.
Which translates to deep intention, faith, or unwavering focus, right?
Exactly. Without shraddha, reciting ancient names is just more asandarbha pralapa.
Just useless, empty noise.
Yeah, you're just moving air through your vocal cords.
Yeah.
But when you mix the recitation with the deep, visceral intention of shraddha, the action activates. Intention is what actually rewrites your cognitive pathways.
And the texts claim that when this remedy is properly activated with Shraddha, it clears the karma of 3,300 past lives.
Yes.
Now, let me stop you right there, because as a modern reader, I hit a massive wall with that number.
Sure.
3,300 lives. That is such a highly specific mathematical claim. How are we supposed to interpret that today without just completely dismissing it as mythological exaggeration?
It's a really crucial question.
Hmm.
You shouldn't look at it as an Excel spreadsheet of literal historical lifetimes.
Okay.
Think of it as a measurement of accumulated baggage. Modern psychology and epigenetics are beginning to show us that trauma, behavioral loops, and stress responses are passed down generationally.
Right, like carrying the unresolved anxieties of your parents, your grandparents, and beyond. That 3,300 lives is really a metaphorical scale for the sheer staggering weight of ancestral baggage we inherit.
Okay, so it's acknowledging that our current missteps aren't just born in a vacuum. They are the result of thousands of iterations of human error.
Exactly.
And deep intention can break that chain.
Precisely. Which leads us to the mythological origin of this entire process.
Mhm.
Why is the Ganga the specific river associated with clearing this massive ancestral weight?
Right. To answer that, we have to turn to the Valmiki Ramayana. This history is recounted by sage Vishwamitra to Lord Rama, and it begins with an ancient ruler named King Sagara.
So King Sagara has two wives. The first, Cassini, gives birth to a single son named Asamanja, who is chaotic and pretty poorly
It's
behaved.
just a real problem child.
Yeah. But the second wife, Samadi, experiences a very different kind of birth. She delivers a gourd.
A gourd that eventually breaks open to yield 60,000 sons.
Yeah. And these sons are just bursting with an almost terrifying amount of energy. Eventually, King Sagara decides to establish universal well-being and, cement his sovereignty by performing a massive ritual called an Ashwamedha Yajna.
Right, which involves letting a sacred horse roam freely across the lands.
But power always attracts a counterforce. Indra, the king of the gods, sees Sagara accumulating this massive amount of influence, and he feels threatened. So Indra assumes the form of a Rakshasa demon and steals the ritual horse.
And I love that detail. The commentators point out that the ritual was intended for universal good.
Right.
Therefore, any attempt to stop it is, by definition, a demonic act. Indra's form morphs to match his malicious intent.
Form follows function. That's so cool. So the horse vanishes. King Sagara commands his 60,000 hyper-energetic sons to find it. They scour the surface of the earth, find nothing, and decide the horse must be underground.
So they start digging.
But they don't use shovels. They use their bare hands.
Specifically, their fingernails.
Hmm.
The Sanskrit texts describe their nails as vajra, which means thunderbolt, or basically diamond hard.
They are essentially 60,000 human excavators. They
Yeah.
tear into the earth, causing massive earthquakes, uprooting forests, killing terrestrial creatures.
Absolute chaos.
The sheer scale of the destruction is apocalyptic. When I was reading this, it struck me as the perfect analogy for unchecked industrial ambition. It's like a corporation clear-cutting an entire rainforest just to mine one specific mineral.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
They are a blind mob, completely obsessed with a singular goal, destroying the very environment that sustains them.
It is the ultimate manifestation of ego unmoored from consequence. They have the objective, but they completely lack the wisdom to achieve it sustainably. They are enacting those physical missteps on a planetary scale.
So they dig their way down into Patala, the underworld, specifically in the northeast direction, and they finally spot the horse. But it is standing right next to Sage Kapila, who is locked in deep, profound meditation.
And here is where the behavioral framework we discussed earlier seals their fate. How do they approach the serene, meditating sage?
With absolute arrogance. They charge at him, and the text emphasizes that they are making a terrible, deafening racket.
It is the fatal return of a Sandarbha Pralapa.
Chaotic, arrogant noise.
Right.
So Sage Kapila is interrupted. He simply opens his eyes, looks at the 60,000 princes, and the sheer, concentrated force of his ascetic power incinerates every single one of them instantly. They are reduced to a mountain of ashes.
Notice the causality here, too. Kapila doesn't fight them physically. The quiet, internalized power of the sage simply reflects their own violent, chaotic energy back at them, and they are consumed by it.
But now King Sagara has a monumental crisis on his hands. His 60,000 sons are dead, but worse, their souls are trapped. Because they died in this cursed manner in the underworld, their karma is stuck. They cannot move on.
And the texts dictate that the only way to purify ashes carrying that magnitude of sin is to wash them in the most pristine heavenly waters, which is the river Ganga, which at this point only flows in the heavens.
And this triggers a generational nightmare. King Sagara rules for 30,000 more years trying to figure out how to bring the river down, but he fails and dies.
Yeah.
His grandson, Anshuman, tries and fails. Anshuman's son, Dilipa, does penance for tens of thousands of years, but he also fails and dies. They are all crushed by the weight of their ancestors' mistakes.
Which brings us to the turning point of the epic, which is King Bhagirath. He represents the ultimate execution of Shraddha.
Bhagirath takes the burden on his shoulders and goes to extreme lengths. He performs a severe penance called Panchatapa. He stands for 1,000 years with his hands raised, surrounded by 5 blazing fires.
4 physical fires around him and the burning sun above.
And he eats only once a month.
Just incredible discipline.
He systematically strips away every comfort, every ego-driven desire, until absolutely nothing is left but pure intention. And finally, the creator god Brahma appears and agrees to let Ganga descend to earth.
But of course, solving one problem immediately creates another.
Oh, obviously.
Brahma warns Bhagirath that the river Ganga is incredibly proud. She is this massive, untamed celestial force. If she falls directly from the heavens, the kinetic impact will literally shatter the earth. She will wash the entire planet down into the underworld.
Right. And I really want to get your perspective on this. When reading about this terrifying falling river, it feels like a very clear metaphor for humanity's relationship with natural chaos. Like, we desperately need water to survive, but a flood will obliterate us.
Absolutely.
We have to learn to manage chaotic forces.
That's a highly accurate lens. The entire next phase of the narrative is really a masterclass in how you domesticate overwhelming power. You cannot just let chaos hit the ground. It must be stepped down, filtered, and humbled.
So, Phagavahe prays to Lord Shiva, the great ascetic god, and as Ganga plummets from the sky, fully intending to just crush the earth beneath her, Shiva simply steps into her path and catches the entire river on his head.
She becomes completely lost in the endless labyrinth of Shiva's matted hair. This is the first crucial step in domesticating the power. Her immense pride is broken. She realizes she is not the most powerful force in the universe.
Yeah. And once she's humbled, Shiva gently releases her into a lake called Bindu Sarovar, which maps to modern-day Lake Manasarovar in Tibet. From there, her overwhelming volume is safely split into 7 manageable streams.
3 flow east, 3 flow west, and 1 stream follows behind King Bhagirath's chariot.
The power has been contained and directed, but there is one final test of ego, which is probably my favorite detail in the entire epic.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant.
I love this part. As the tamed river is flowing peacefully behind Bhagirath, she accidentally floods the ritual space of another powerful sage named Janu.
All right, Sage Janu is in the middle of his sacred rites. He sees his altar washed away, and he is so profoundly annoyed by this river's carelessness that he simply bends down, cups his hands, and drinks the entire river.
Every single drop.
Just swallows the whole thing.
Bhagirath must be absolutely panicking at this point. He spent 1,000 years trying to get this water, and some annoyed sage just drank it. The gods have to descend and plead with Sage Janu to let her go.
And Janu is eventually pacified, and he allows the river to flow out of his ear. Because she is reborn from him in a way, she earns the name Jahnavi, identifying her as his daughter.
Wow.
It is the final stripping away of her celestial arrogance. She is now bound to the human realm through a familial tie.
Which is why Jahnavi is one of the key names invoked in the Ganga Stotram we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
She finally follows Bhagirath deep into the underworld. She washes over the massive mountain of ashes, purifying the stuck karma of the 60,000 sons and liberating their souls. And because Bhagirath's unparalleled effort brought her there, she earns her most famous name, Bhagirathi.
It is just an incredible narrative arc that perfectly mirrors the internal process.
Exactly. Let's bring this all together for you. The Epic of Bhagirath is the ultimate macro-level example of the psychological remedy we discussed at the start. Those 60,000 sons were the embodiment of the 10 missteps.
Yeah, they committed violence, they operated with harsh noise, they clung desperately to their destructive objective.
They generated a mountain of ancestral ash.
And it required an equally massive counterforce of Shraddha, that deep, unwavering intention of their descendant, to act as the Anupana, the carrier that allowed the purifying waters to actually wash that slate clean.
Before we close, the texts layer in one more fascinating piece of historical trivia. According to the tradition, this exact same auspicious day, the 10th day of the Jeshta month, is the anniversary of two other monumental events.
It is celebrated as the wedding anniversary of the monkey god Hanuman.
And it is the specific day that Lord Rama and his monkey army began constructing the Setu Bandhana, which is the great stone bridge across the ocean to the island of Lanka.
A day entirely defined by bridging the impossible and overcoming insurmountable physical barriers through sheer devotion.
Which leaves us with a lingering thought for you to take away. We are not ancient kings, obviously, and we aren't trying to bring down celestial rivers, but we all carry the heavy ashes of our past mistakes.
We all carry inherited baggage, burned bridges, and deep psychological habits we know we should let go of, but just don't.
Right. The ancients understood that a physical action alone isn't enough to heal those deep grooves. You need both the medium and the intent.
You really do.
So in your own life, what is your personal anupana? What is the specific, unwavering intention you need to mix into your daily actions so that your own internal river can finally flow freely and wash the ashes away?
That's a powerful question to sit with.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.